It was altogether positive, I must say. I took possession of the Diocese of La Crosse on February 22nd, 1995, and soon thereafter a group of the faithful asked to have a priest to celebrate the Mass according to what we now call the extraordinary form, and in those days it was called the indult Mass. And the Mass was already being celebrated according to the extraordinary form. My predecessor had been generous in that regard, but the Mass was being offered by diocesan priests who were already very heavily burdened, and the group of the faithful that wanted the Mass was large, and I needed to find a priest to help, and so I did. And in the beginning, when I announced that I was forming this oratory in one of the major cities of the Diocese of La Crosse for the celebration of the Mass according to the extraordinary form, a number of the priests were very resistant and expressed many hesitations. But already the Venerable Pope John Paul II had urged that a generosity on the part of the bishops in permitting the celebration of the Mass according to the Missal of St. Pius V, which had had its last edition under Blessed John the 23rd. And so I insisted with the priest that this could only be something good. I remember at one meeting with the priests, a certain group of priests who were very resistant, who were my age or older, I simply asked the question, we, those priests and myself, grew up with that Mass of St. Pius V. We loved it. We loved to serve the Mass. It inspired very much our vocations. Why now should we not continue to appreciate deeply and love that rite without any negative comment with regard to the Novus Ordo or the rite of Pope Paul VI? In any case, that oratory was established and another oratory in another part of the diocese, and the faithful who assisted at the Mass according to the extraordinary form were very strong members of the diocese. There was a wonderful spirit among the faithful after they began to see that this was really an enrichment, not in some way a difficulty for the Church, but an enrichment to have the Mass celebrated according to the two forms. I was blessed to have the help of a congregation of secular canons, the Institute of Christ the King Sovereign Priest, which was founded in Gricigliano outside of Florence. They assisted me in La Crosse and they continued to have a very well-received apostolate there. And of course there are other groups too that assist this, and then many diocesan priests as well. When I went to St. Louis, there was need there also to provide more fully for the priestly care of the community that was attached to the celebration of the Mass according to the extraordinary form. And I called upon the help once again of the Institute of Christ the King Sovereign Priest, and we were able to establish an oratory at one of the most beautiful churches in St. Louis, built by German Catholics in the 19th century, but which, with the change of population, was on the verge of being closed as a parish church, and the Latin Mass community, as we called them, or the faithful that were attending the Mass according to the extraordinary form, they took on the challenge of taking over this church and caring for it, and that too is thriving. And once again, it's been a great blessing for the church in the Archdiocese of St. Louis. In the end, I think what Pope Benedict XVI has said repeatedly is so true, that the beauty, the goodness of the rite has to be as appreciated by us today as it has been in the past. The rite going back practically to the time of Pope Gregory the Great, and in that way it will enrich the worship perfect the worship of the whole church, the celebration of the Mass also according to the extraordinary form of the Roman Rite. And it's my own hope, and I see the signs, the real signs for this hope, that through the celebration of the Mass, according to the extraordinary form of the Roman Rite, there will be a mutual enrichment of the extraordinary form and ordinary form, and I'm hoping that with time we will find a way for a reform of the reform in order to address, as Pope Benedict XVI has also addressed it, those abuses which took place after the Council, which were not mandated by the Council, and we cannot blame the Second Vatican Ecumenical Council for them, but they happened, and we need to restore very much I suppose the principal result of the abuse was a too anthropocentric idea of the sacred liturgy, as if it were something that we had invented and therefore with which we could experiment, instead of being a gift given by our Lord to the Church, which we must prize and treasure and safeguard. We need to recover that sense that this is the action of Christ, that it's Christ who's the protagonist, for instance, in the celebration of Holy Mass, not me as a person, not the priest in his personality, but Christ himself. My great hope is that through this continuation of the celebration of the Roman Rite under both forms, that there will result a reform of the rite of the Mass, which will underline once again strongly the transcendent nature of the sacred liturgy, as Pope Benedict often says, the meeting of heaven and earth.